Hey guys, I'm Matt Leslie. I'm the Young Democrats president here in Loudoun. I'm here with a couple of folks. We're going to talk over the 10th Congressional District Committee. Why don't we introduce ourselves?
Hey guys, Jenny Couch, Loudoun Young Democrats Communications Director.
Zach Bukowski, Vice Chair, 10th Congressional District Committee, and also Loudoun YD member.
Awesome. So we're going to use this opportunity to provide a visual description of the 10th District Democratic Committee and some of the ways that they kind of fit into the total structure throughout the state and here in Loudoun County. So I'm going to let Zach take off on the marker situation.
Alright guys, so as the resident 10th Congressional District experts, let's talk through then how the committee is structured and how it fits into other Democratic Party organizations.
Okay. Well, I think that the first thing to understand is that the purpose of all these committees is to represent the Democrats sort of within them. Like the purpose of the Leesburg Democrats is to represent, the committee members on the Leesburg Democrats represent all the people who consider themselves to be Democrats who live in Leesburg. So there are like 30 people on the Leesburg Democrats who represent, the thousands of people who live in the town of Leesburg who consider themselves to be Democrats.
The specific issues that relate that Leesburg Democrats value and want to prioritize.
Or like similarly, the people who are in LCDC represent, who, there are 300-400 Loudoun Democrats, but they represent like the 70,000-80,000 people who live in Loudoun who consider themselves to be Democrats.
Got it.
So, and each of the, like they're literally representatives in the sense that every 2 years, all of the local level committees reorganize. So if you show up like next December or January or something, you can come and join them and be a representative, or you can get added throughout the year.
It's the same way that our congressional representatives are meant to embody the issues that matter to the voters that live in their district, right? So the Leesburg Dems, they embody the issues that all of the Leesburg Democratic voters bring to their light. LCDC, the 400 or 500 members, try to reflect the issues of Democratic, the thousands of Democratic voters across Loudoun County.
Yeah.
Right?
So in theory, as a member of LCDC, you're speaking for, you're trying to represent all of the Democrats who live in Loudoun. As a member, as a member of Loudoun Young Democrats, you're trying to represent all of the Democrats under the age of 36. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not in the frame, am I?
There we go.
All the Democrats under the age of 36 who live in Loudoun. That's sort of the idea of how it's supposed to work as a committee member.
So that diverse populations have their views heard.
Right. So
this chart is based on location, right? So you start with kind of your as local as it gets with your town or your magisterial districts, and then it goes up to a county level and a congressional district level, ending in a state level. And we could have gone even further to a national level. We could have easily drawn this chart and done it, issues based, with showing kind of smaller issue bases feeding into Loudoun, an LCDC based issue committee feeding into a 10th Congressional District issue-based committee and all the way up, So there's the Asian American, Democratic Caucus and DPVA that gets fed into by all these lower committees, the same way that this general membership feeds up the chain from small to large.
Yeah, I think the location-based breakdown, though, is easiest to help us tell the folks that watch this how we vote for the people that represent us on the 10th CD.
For most of it, the location is the one that matters. So the 10th CD is sort of the same general deal in the sense that people who are on the 10th CD are elected to represent the interests of, there are 20 of us and there are 200,000 Democrats in the 10th CD, which means we're all when I, as a member of the 10th CD, when I make a decision, I'm supposed to be thinking, what's the best thing for all of the Democrats who live in Loudoun, who live in the 10th CD, who live in the state of Virginia. It's not supposed to be a personal thing. It's supposed to be I'm trying to do this. We're all trying to do this in their, trying to help them figure out what we can do to help them as their representatives on, the regional on this county Democratic Party, on the regional Democratic Party,
Right.
on the state Democratic Party.
So let's talk through this a little bit. So the way that I see how this works as the non-expert on the 10th CD. So first you have the magisterial level, right? So for instance, I live in Catoctin, so that's my Loudoun County Democratic District, right? So that's my first level. Then I move up to participating in the Loudoun County Democratic Committee, which represents and incorporates all of the magisterial districts, of which we have 8.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
So, and because you live in Catoctin, you're eligible to vote for who is the Catoctin chair, which is currently John Flannery, and then as a member of the Loudoun Democrats, you're also eligible to vote for the people who are the officers of the Loudoun Democrats.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how, that's and then as a member of the as a Democrat who lives in the 10th CD, you're also eligible to participate in the process to pick who the 10th CD members are.
Right. So then from the county level, the 10th CD is made up of all of the counties that fall into that congressional district. So we've got Loudoun, parts of Fairfax, parts of Manassas. I know there are many others because of the interesting setup of the 10th CD.
Winchester, Clark, Frederick County, Prince William County, Loudoun County, Fairfax County, Manassas Park, and I already said Prince
I think
William.
that's it. Yeah.
So all of those counties then come together to form the 10th Congressional District. So each of the counties that are represented in the 10th get to have a say in who's elected to the 10th Congressional District Committee.
Right.
Yeah.
So, whereas with the Loudoun Democrats or, the Sterling Democrat or the Catoctin Democrats or whoever, or the Loudoun Young Democrats, it's small enough that we can all get together in a room. It's a pretty large room in the case of Loudoun Democrats, and vote on who's going to be in charge.
Right.
Because the 10th CD goes from the West Virginia line, all the way to Clifton and McLean, we can't, and from the Potomac River down to Manassas, we can't really do that, which is why we have a convention process.
Right.
Where the idea is that it's sort of a two-tiered system, where, all the people in Loudoun are going to get together and decide who they want to send as their group to the convention.
Yeah.
And then the convention makes the decisions, if that makes sense.
It does. So we have the 10th Congressional District, which we are represented in, but then every other congressional district in the state also has a committee that has the same responsibilities that ours does.
Yeah.
And all of those committees come together to do what within the Democratic Party of Virginia?
So, in theory, the Democratic Party of Virginia Central Committee which is the group that's made up of all of the CD committees, is, in charge of the local Democratic Party. But we only meet once a quarter, so in reality, it winds up mostly making decisions should we have a primary for, the reason we have a primary for the governor's race and for the lieutenant governor's race coming up in June is because back in December, Matt and I and the other 200 members of the Central Committee took a vote and said, we want to do the governor's race by a primary,
So Matt, I see you've written here, we've got DPVA Central, we've got the steering committee that sits over it. Can you break down how this all works together for us?
Sure. So all of the members that are a member of each of these congressional district committees make up the Central Committee, which is kind of the larger general committee. And then each one of these congressional district committees has a chair. And the chair of each one of these committees, so there's 11 chairs, make up the steering committee. And I believe there's other folks on.
Right, and there's also the officers, the chair of the Virginia Democrats is on there, or the chair of the Virginia Young Democrats, or the chair of the Virginia Latino Organization, the Democratic Latino Organization of Virginia, or all the those kinds of there are a bunch of groups who also have a member on the steering committee, and basically all of those leaders within the party make up the steering committee, which meets a little more often and has a little more say.
And much like LCDC has an executive committee that makes recommendations to the general membership in LCDC, the steering committee kind of plays the same role for the Central Committee and DPVA.
And because it's smaller and meets more often, there's a lot of talking done there, and then they give recommendations to Central, and we act on those recommendations.
So, Matt and Zach, if I heard you correctly, essentially the structure throughout all of these levels, whether it's at the magisterial level or at the central committee level, is pretty much the same. It's just the population of Democratic voters that they are trying to represent.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, down here you might be representing, you know, a few hundred people. Here you're representing, you know, thousands of people. You know, tens of thousands of people at this level, and at this level, you know, I think there's certainly millions of people
Right.
in the state of Virginia that look to DPVA as kind of their leading voice for democratic values in the state.
Yeah, who
And
consider
then-
themselves Democrats and who show up and, you know,
Right.
yeah.
And then just to wrap this up, above the DPVA would be the DNC, right? And
Yes.
each state would have a similar sort of steering party that reports into the DNC.
Right. So there are probably about 8 or 9 members of the DNC from Virginia. 5 of them are elected at the state convention, which we just had last June. 2 of them are elected by Central when we elect our officers, you know, because our chair is a member, and then, you know, the person below the chair is also a member.
Right.
So that's, yeah. So there's only, you know, it sort of gets more compact where, you know, on Central we're representing millions of people and there are 200 of us or so. And then DNC representing all of Virginia, and there are like, what, 7 or 8 of them.
Right. All right, so anything else then we should talk about for folks that are watching in terms of the structure of the 10th CD?
I think the only other thing that I would want to talk about is just the breakdown of the individual members within the 10th CD. So in the LCDC, you know, there's no cap on how many people can be from Sterling or how many people can be from Leesburg. On the 10th CD, that's not the case. We have a membership of 20 people, and then there's some at-large members from the whole district. But those 20 members come from the localities, and it's based on different things depending on what central committee decides the rules are going to be. This year it was based on the percentage of Democratic vote from, I believe, the governor's election year in 2013 within your congressional district. So
yeah, there's a big math formula that takes into account, you know, Democratic performance in the last, you know, 2 or 3 elections, statewide elections, and then also how many people live in that area.
Yeah.
So they figure out that formula, and we vote on that formula, and that determines, you know, like Fairfax gets 6, Loudoun gets 9, and then like every jurisdiction in the 10th gets at least 1 person.
And for those that are interested, we break down that a little bit more in the most recent podcast episode, so feel free to take a listen to that if you are specifically interested in how we break down the members that get a seat on the 10th. So, guys, I think what we're going to talk about next then is how the convention is structured and how we elect people that serve in the different roles that make up the 10th CD process. So let's start here at the bottom. How does it begin?
So because we can't fit every Democrat in the 10th in, you know, 1 room, because we would need like a football stadium, and even that wouldn't. We need a couple football stadiums.
We can't get the Redskins to give it to us?
Sadly, no. Also, it's a bit of a hike. So what we do is we have a convention, which is going to be held in May, and there are going to be 200 and something, 203, 200 and something like that, voting delegates who go to that convention, and then that convention picks the committee. So just the 92 people who go to that convention from Loudoun will pick the committee members from Loudoun, who are then on the 10th.
So much like anyone who's a Dem voter can sign up to be a delegate, they can also participate in the caucus. And so if we have more than 92 Dem voters that want to be a delegate, that's when we would have to hold a caucus in which anyone who was a Dem voter could participate to vote to pick those 92 delegates.
Yeah.
Got it. So then those 92 delegates who are selected by all Democratic voters in Loudoun County who show up to vote on that particular day in 2017, it's April 22nd, Those 92 delegates then go on to the 10th CD-wide convention held in 2017, May 13th.
13th.
Yep.
At
Where
Run High School.
all of the delegates elected from each county will come together to elect all 20 committee members, and in our case, we elect 9 from Loudoun. That's what we were given, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then those.
Well, I mean, it's not given. It's what 9 is what Loudoun earned by, having so many people and, having so much democratic performance. We get 9 members.
Yeah, that's definitely a good clarification because go Dems and Loudoun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Evan pointed this out in our podcast, and I do think it's worth repeating. In an alternate universe where, say there were hardly any Democratic voters in Loudoun, and everybody that lived in Clark County was a Democratic voter, it may be that Clark County could potentially have more members on the committee than Loudoun, even though there are way smaller population-wise, but that's not the case. And so Loudoun is bigger than Clark population-wise and also happens to have more Democratic voters than Clark, thus us having more committee members.
Like in a world where we were a lot bluer, we would have 10 committee members. In a world where we were, if we had a bad 4 years, we might only have 8 committee members.
Got it, that makes sense. So Loudoun's 92 delegates then elected at that firehouse primary, or for the first however many fewer than 92 filed, go on to the convention on May 13th, where they will elect our 9 Loudoun committee members, and each of the delegates from the other counties that form the 10th CD will elect their prescribed number of committee members to form 20 total that make up the 10th Congressional District.
Right.
Talk about today then is the responsibilities of the 10th Congressional District Committee. So I think we've broken down the 3 main areas that fall into that pie, if you will. So let's break these down, starting with the local committee oversight. So
our goal is to support the local committee, because most of the folks on the 10th are themselves experienced Democrats who can help out in their local committee. Who can sort of, help keep a line of communication between their local committee and, the CD party and the state party, and also, help their local chairs do things. But also, we're sort of the appeals body. If someone gets really mad about something the LCDC does, and they think that something the LCDC does, not just they disagree with it, but they think that it breaks the rules, they would file an appeal with the 10th, and we would listen, and we would say, were the rules broken, yes or no? And then, depending on how that went, it might also go up to the whole state.
Got it. So in this bucket then of local committee oversight, the members of the 10th CD provide support to their local committees, in our case the Loudoun Democratic Committee, and they help, or they oversee the appeals process in the event that there is a situation where a law or rule may have been broken.
Right. Facilitate and mediate any disagreements that occur at the local level, provides a body where those people can come to for a decision and help in clarifying, what was the right thing to do.
I mean, that happens pretty infrequently. That's only happened like once, in the 4 years I've been there, that's only happened once or twice.
Yeah. So it's really more about then the support, the coordination.
And the idea is that if you support and help your local chairs, you won't wind up in situations where
if you do that well, you rarely have to do that.
Right. That's the goal.
Yeah.
So then the second piece, and I think the one that folks are most familiar with, is the responsibility for selecting the process for how we choose our Democratic candidate for Congress. So let's talk a little bit about
and that's an important distinction, because we don't decide who our next Democratic nominee is going to be. Like the Democratic voters in the 10th CD decide. If multiple people decide they want to run for Congress, and they actually go and want to get on the ballot, and they're serious about it, and they're raising money, it's not up to us to say who gets it. It's up to the voters, and you can determine that by having a caucus or a convention, or by saying let's just have it go to a state-run primary. And there are various arguments for or against each of those methods of making the decision that are entirely too technical to get into in this relatively short video. But yeah, we pick the process, and then if multiple people decide they want to participate in the process, then we go to, actually having, then the Democratic voters weigh in through those caucuses or through that primary.
And I'll just plug our podcast again to say that for those that have an interest in learning more about the difference between a caucus and a primary, take a listen to our podcast from last week. We do talk about the differences there, although I have to say we don't get into the super technical details, but we do break it down.
Yeah, so we pick which one of these are going to happen, and then the voters decide.
Yeah. Next January, February, when we get to this point, maybe we can do another podcast and really get into the weeds if people want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I do think, Zach, you're right. That's a really important point to make, and we make this on the podcast too, that the 10th CD does not choose the nominee if there are multiple candidates running to become the nominee. You just select whether we have a caucus or primary based on a number of different factors that we can break down for folks in another format if they're interested, and then facilitate either that caucus or primary to allow the Democratic voters within the 10th to choose their candidate.
Right. We just set the rules of the game, and the candidate, we set the rules of the competition. The candidates compete, and the voters judge.
You guys are the refs. Yeah. All right, so that takes us then to the last area of responsibility, which is membership on the Virginia State Central Committee.
Yeah, and so we went over this earlier in the video, but everybody who is a member of the 10th CD is a member of the DPVA State Central, and that body meets quarterly, so 4 times a year for those of you keeping track. And that pretty much just provides oversight for the state party operation. The chairs of each of the congressional district committees, where steering meets a little more often to provide a little bit more direct oversight to the staff, but it's mostly deciding the policy that we're going to support on a statewide level, and then pick, much like the 10th CD picks the selection process on the congressional level, the State Central will pick the selection process for statewide offices such as Senate, Governor, Attorney General, all of that.
All right, I think that covers then the main points of the 10th Congressional District Committee. Any final words you guys want to share on it that we didn't cover?
No, not really.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you everybody for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Make sure to like our Facebook page, Loudoun Young Democrats. We're on Twitter at LoudounYD and on Instagram at Loudoun Young Dems. Thank you guys. That was perfect timing. That's like in the zone.
I think we need to have that as like a blooper.
The Loudoun Young Dems blooper reel. All right, so I'm filming it, so whenever we're ready, we can just.
Woo, go us.
Yeah.
We're filming right now.
Yeah, but I can edit. Don't worry. No, I'm gonna include this part in the video.
Make sure you edit this part.
Yeah.
And none for you, Glen Coco.
None for who?
Glen Coco.
Okay, so
Hi, crying baby. Nice to meet you.
we're getting.
Welcome to our video about the 10th Congressional District.
A video about the 10th Congressional District featuring special guests. Some crying
Like-
baby.
Baby.